What's going on, everybody? Spaceballs here. Welcome back to a near reincarnation video. Anyway, today we're going to talk about memories. We're going to fully dissect them, what drops in what dungeon, and then we're going to go over the best sets and how you should be ruining your heroes. So let's get right into this one. Now, the first one up is Dynasties, and this is where I started, and then Witchers came into the game, and I never farmed officers. There is some interesting sets in officers, though, which we'll talk about in just 1 second. But as far as the Dynasty dungeon goes, this drops HP defense, attack, and crit damage. So when you're first breaking into the game, this is a great dungeon to start farming because it gives you, tankiness, the attack that you want to push early on, because it's going to be really hard for you to push the crit rates. And when you first break into the game, pushing attack is a good idea. And then as you get into the later stages of the game, or you start farming the Witchers, then you can start pushing up your crit rate. But pushing attack early on is always a good idea. Crit rate seems to make a huge difference in this game and really makes the flow of the match that much better. I noticed on A2 it really helps out a lot, so I'm definitely making that change over from all attack to crit rate, attack, and crit damage. But early on, you have to start somewhere, so pushing attack is never a bad idea. So now you've been farming Dynasties for a while, and you want to move on to the next one. Now, I do think a lot of people just skip over officers now that Witchers is in the game, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad move, but there is 2 interesting sets in this dungeon, and one of them is attack up and defense up, and then the other one is attack down and defense down. I do think these sets have a place somewhere in the game. I really do like the attack up and defense down one, because you're pushing up your attack and then you're taking down their defense, which is just going to give you more damage overall. So this is definitely a set that I want to do some testing on in the future. But I do understand why people just farm attack, crit rate, and crit damage, because it is much easier to achieve those stats when you're using those set bonuses. And then we also have agility and crit rate. If Witchers never came into the game, I'd be farming officers hardcore alongside Dynasties to get the attack sets. But I do think now that they added Witchers to the game, and they're adding a new Rune dungeon tonight as well, that officers is going to be the most overlooked Rune dungeon in the game. So I definitely want to farm it and get some of these attack up and defense down sets just to test them out and see how effective that could be, especially in PvP content. But I think PvP is going to be mostly agility, so probably will get me nowhere. But I do want to farm some sets and do some testing and see how much more damage you could do with that set, giving yourself attack up and then the enemy defense down. It just seems like a fun set to have. So going on to the Witchers, and this is my bread and butter. This is where I've been farming since it came into the game, because this basically gives you the best of all the sets in one dungeon. So if we look at Witchers, we're getting crit rate, crit damage, attack, and agility. This basically covers it all. It covers PvP, PvE, and it's giving you all the sets that are needed to boost your stats to make your team force as high as it can possibly be. So being able to farm attack, crit rate, and crit damage and agility all in one just makes life a lot easier. And I think this is why people are skipping over the second dungeon now, because it's just much easier to come into Witchers. People might even be skipping the first dungeon now too as well, or maybe farming it, getting their base sets, and then going straight into Witchers. And I think if I just started the game, that's what I would do as well, because it's just much more beneficial to get attack, crit rate, and crit damage sets right away without having to farm the in-between sets. But when you're trying to push content, you're trying to farm the game, the best thing you could do is come into Witchers, farm your attack, crit rate, crit damage, and agility all at the same time, because that's going to cover all aspects of the game. So Witchers right now is definitely the best place to farm as far as memories. I keep saying runes. Sorry, guys. Memories, runes. I'm just so used to saying runes from other games, so please forgive me for that. It is my epic fail. It's just much easier for me to remember runes than memories. But when it comes to farming steady memories, I think Witchers is the best one to farm. Now, they are adding a new one tonight, so once it is released, we'll go over it, we'll see what it drops, and then we'll decide if it's worth farming over Witchers or side by side with Witchers. But right now, 100%, if you can, farm Witchers. It seems that it's not too bad neither. I am able to farm stage 8, no problem. I do have 2 main-handed light weapons, and I use 2B's dark weapon, so maybe that's why it's so easy for me to farm. But even if you can't farm stage 8, stage 7 is fine until you can get to stage 8. But if you're not farming stage 7, I would recommend you just staying in Dynasties until you can farm stage 7 or stage 8 of Witchers. So if you can farm stage 8 or stage 9 or even stage 10 of Dynasties, I would recommend doing that. And then once you get your base sets, you can switch over to Witchers and start farming 7, 8, or 9. I wouldn't really recommend heavily farming stage 6 because it doesn't drop 4-star runes. So if you're going to spend a lot of stamina and farm this heavily to really start farming your rune sets, I'd recommend going on 7 or above. But there is nothing wrong with farming 6 if you just want to get your base sets, because you have to start somewhere, like I always tell you guys. So now with all that out of the way, let's pull up some of these sets and let's talk about what we're looking for when we're upgrading or choosing our memories / runes, since I keep saying it. There's 3 ways I like to look at this: DPS, support, and hybrid. DPS is all DPS stats, attack, crit rate, crit damage. Support is going to be HP, defense, some speed, and now we want speed on all of our characters, just a little bit, depending on what content we're doing. If we're focusing on PvP, we want a lot of speed. We want to take the first turn, so speed is always going to be important. But if you're just running up a DPS for PvE content, you're going to go with attack, crit rate, and crit damage, defense down, attack up. All of those sets are great for that. If you're running up a support, you're going to go with HP, defense, agility, anything that's going to give your unit tanky stats. And then a hybrid is the mix between the two. So you're going to go with some HP, some attack, crit rate, crit damage, maybe a little bit of defense and speed. And that is a hybrid build where you're basically evenly building everything up. Now in this game, I don't really find myself building too many hybrid units. So I find myself stacking HP and attack on my healer. And then on my DPSs, I'm stacking crit rate, crit damage, and attack. I'm honestly not doing any of that yet because I really haven't started farming memories hardcore, but I will start doing that very soon. But I am doing that now, so my sets are going to start getting a lot better, and I do want to start pushing my crit rate to 80-90%, because I do think that crit rate is really important in this game and really just makes the matches flow a lot better than not having it, especially on your A2 and your 2B or whatever you're using as your main damage dealer. So we're looking through our runes, and the first thing we're going to take into consideration is the stars, if we're going to max this rune out or not. Maxing out a 1-star or 2-star really costs nothing. So early on, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You can max it out. It's really not going to cost you anything gold-wise. But when you start maxing out 4 stars, this is going to drain your gold quickly. So you really want to pick the runes wisely and make sure you're leveling up the runes that you're going to use long-term and not waste your gold on ones that you're just going to throw away a couple days later when you pull a better one. So this rune is a perfect example. This is on an HP set. Now, I'm not too happy about it being on an HP set. It's not the worst thing, but it's not the best thing. I'd much rather have a crit damage set or a crit rate set or even an agility set for PvP. But being on an HP set is not the worst thing. And this is a really good example because we have a shared primary stat. And this is the first thing to keep in mind is that you can have the same primary and secondary stat on your memories. And then we have crit rate and crit damage and flat HP. Now, I wish the flat HP was HP percentage, but this is an example of a really good rune. Another thing is you can get flat attack on the primary. You really don't want that. You want to have percentages just like every other gacha game. You don't want to go with flat stats. You want to go with percentages, so attack percentage, HP percentage, defense percentage. And if you can even share that same stat in the secondary, that is an awesome feature that this game has. When I'm picking my endgame runes, I would never go with flat stats. Early on, I did level up a few just to have a base. But when I'm picking my 4-star rune and I'm dumping gold into it, I will never level up a rune that has a flat base. I will never do that. It's a waste of gold, and I just don't recommend you guys doing it neither. If this was a crit damage or crit rate set, this would be a much better rune. But even being an HP set, it's still usable, and I will find use for it in the future. It might even be a really good rune on 2P because she does like to have some HP. So I'm most likely going to put this rune on her for now because she does like HP, and it is a really good rune. So this might go on my 2P. I'll have to see what I pull in the future or what I have matching set-wise. So now we have the agility set. I do want to talk about this really quick. I wouldn't use agility on anything unless it's on my PvP team. I don't think you need agility in PvE content. You don't want to use primary agility, and you don't want to use a set bonus of agility in PvE content. PvP is a totally different story because you want to take the first turn, but when you're doing PvE content, the only thing you really need is a secondary of agility. That will be fine. Just as long as you're taking the first turn before the boss, you don't need to worry about agility after that. Yes, having a little bit of speed is good, but you don't really need to push the speed and worry about sets and primaries of agility until they release the PvP content, which will be the next couple of weeks. But for now, I really wouldn't worry about agility too much. I would focus more on those DPS or support substats. Unless you're pre-building your PvP team, then that's different. Then you want to put agility sets. I get it. But when you're building your PvE teams, don't worry about agility unless on your secondary stats. So again, we have this set, which is attack up by 30%, defense down by 30%. I really do like this set, the idea of this set. But this is a good example of a bad rune. We have flat attack as the primary. We either want them to have DPS stats, support stats, or hybrid stats where it's a mixture of both. Kind of like that last rune I showed you guys, the 4-star one, where it had all the damage stats and then it had the HP set. That is a perfect example of a hybrid rune. This is a perfect example of a bad rune. The stats are just all over the place, and it's nothing you ever want to use with the flat primary. And then the substats just being all over the place. It's a terrible rune. Even though it's on an interesting set, I will never use it. It's a 1-star, but I'm just using it as an example. Even if this room's a 4-star, it would still be garbage, just for the fact that it's all over the place and it's not synergistic. When you're picking your memories, you really want them to be synergized to what you're building. This would be a really good rune to invest in because you have a critical rate primary, you have critical rate on the set bonus, you have critical rate in the secondary, then you have crit damage and attack, depending on how it rolls. But running something like this early on would not be a bad idea because it's going to get you all the crit rate you need in one rune along with the set bonus, because with the primary, the secondary, and then the set bonus, you're going to be somewhere in that 60 to 65% area of crit rate. So you're only going to need a little bit more to get to that crit rate threshold that you're looking for, which is 85% or 85 to 95%. So this rune is a decent rune for PvP content. We have agility primary, we have a secondary of attack, HP, crit rate, and defense, and it is on an attack set. The only thing I don't like about this is that it doesn't have crit damage. If it had crit damage, I would consider using it, but being it's a 3-star rune and has agility primary, it's only going to be useful for me in PvP content. And the fact that it's on an attack set and not an agility set, I probably would never use it, because if I'm going to push agility primary, I'm definitely going to push agility in my set bonus. And again, we have agility main stat, we have attack, crit rate, agility, HP. I probably wouldn't use this again because it's on an HP set. If this was agility and agility, because we don't need agility primaries and set bonuses unless we're running for PvP content. So again, this is another good example of a hybrid rune. I don't like defense too much. Now, having a little bit of defense is never a bad thing, but I would never use a defense set bonus. That's just the way I look at it. I would never use it. I do like the fact that it's a 4-star. We have attack percent primary. We have agility, attack, crit rate, and defense. Now, if the defense was crit damage, I would definitely find use for this rune. But being that the defense is there and there's no crit damage, I would probably never level this up, even though it is a 4-star. But like I said before, you don't want to just level up 4 stars that you're not going to use long term, because it's going to blow through your gold and you're going to regret it in the end, because you're going to find a better memory that's going to replace this and all of that gold you dumped into it. Now, you will get some of it back, but most of that gold will be lost. So it's definitely not worth powering up a rune like this unless you know for sure you're going to use it late game. Now, when it comes to 2 stars and 3 stars, using, so-so runes is not a bad thing, because it doesn't cost you a lot of gold to level them up and you could just sell them. It's not a big deal. But when it comes to 4-star runes, they're super expensive. So you really want to be picky on the runes that you're choosing to power up. I can keep going over all of these runes and all these sets for days. So to wrap this up, if you're running for PvP content, you're looking for speed and DPS stats. And if you're building a support or healer, you're looking to make it as tanky as possible. DPS units, you're looking for attack, crit rate, crit damage, defense down. Anything that's going to make you stronger and make them weaker is always going to be a good thing. And if you're building a hybrid, you're looking for the mixture of all of it. So you're looking for that HP set bonus with the attack substats or vice versa. But just remember, you always want a percentage primary, and you can get the same primary in your secondaries. And when you're leveling up your endgame 4-star runes, make sure they're worth it and you're going to use them long term. You don't want to waste gold in leveling them up if you're not going to use them end game. That's the most important thing I could tell you in this memory/rune video. If you guys have anything to add to this, please comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. You always give me awesome information. Thank you guys so much for the support here on YouTube. You guys are absolutely blowing me away. Once we reach 4,000 subs, which we're super close, we will start another sub celebration. If you want to follow me on Twitch and Discord, those are always linked down below. We do 2 monthly giveaways on Discord, random giveaways on Twitch. If you want to be a part of the random giveaway that we do here on YouTube, all you do is sub to the channel, like and comment on my past 10 videos, and that will automatically enter to the random giveaway. I truly do love each and every single one of you. I will see you in the next one. Spaceballs out. Peace.